Whispers of the Autumn Wind. The first time Daniel saw Evelyn, it was in the library of their small university town. She was seated near the tall window, sunlight spilling across her hair as she scribbled something into a worn leather notebook. Her face carried the calm concentration of someone lost in her own world. Daniel, a literature student, had come to the library countless times, but never before had he noticed her. Something about her presence, quiet yet radiant, pulled at him. He lingered longer than necessary, pretending to browse the shelves, all the while stealing glances in her direction. For weeks, he saw her there, always with that notebook, always writing. He wondered what stories she carried, what secrets her pen whispered onto the page. Finally, one crisp autumn afternoon, he gathered the courage to approach her. "Excuse me," he said gently, standing at her table, "are you writing a novel, or is it just notes for class?" Evelyn looked up, startled. Her eyes were the kind of deep brown that seemed to hide both storms and warmth. A faint blush colored her cheeks as she closed the notebook slightly, as if guarding its contents. "Neither," she replied softly. "Just thoughts." "Thoughts worth guarding so carefully?" Daniel asked, smiling. She hesitated, then returned the smile, shy but genuine. "Something like that." That simple exchange became the beginning of countless conversations. Day after day, Daniel found himself drawn to her table, and Evelyn, though reserved at first, slowly let him in. They spoke about books, music, their dreams, and fears. He learned that Evelyn wrote not for fame but for comfort. Her notebook was her safe place, her way of making sense of the world. As autumn leaves painted the streets gold and crimson, their bond deepened. Daniel began walking Evelyn home after long evenings at the library. They laughed under the glow of street lamps, their footsteps echoing in rhythm. Every moment felt like something fragile, something rare. One evening, as the first winter chill set in, they paused at the stone bridge that overlooked the river. Evelyn leaned on the railing, her breath visible in the cold air. "Do you ever feel like life moves too fast?" she asked quietly. "Sometimes," Daniel admitted. "But then I meet someone like you, and suddenly I wish time would slow down." Her eyes met his, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to still. The sound of rushing water faded, the city lights blurred, and there was only the unspoken connection between them. That night, Daniel kissed her, gentle, uncertain, but filled with all the words he couldn't yet say. Evelyn didn't pull away. Instead, she closed her eyes, letting herself be carried by the warmth of the moment. But life, as it often does, tested them. Evelyn had dreams of studying abroad, Daniel had family responsibilities that kept him rooted in the city. When she received her acceptance letter to a program in Paris, joy and sorrow intertwined in her heart. "I don't want to leave you," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Daniel took her hands in his, steady and warm. "Then don't think of it as leaving. Think of it as us learning how strong we really are." They promised to write letters, real letters, not just messages on a screen. And they did. Each envelope carried pieces of their souls across oceans, Daniel's messy handwriting, Evelyn's poetic words. Their love stretched across distance, tested by time zones and longing, but it never wavered. Years later, when Evelyn returned to the same stone bridge where they had shared their first kiss, Daniel was waiting. His smile was just as she remembered, his presence steady as ever. "You kept your promise," she said, her voice trembling. "So did you," he replied, pulling out from his coat pocket a worn leather notebook, the very same one she had guarded so long ago. Inside, between her old writings, were his letters, carefully tucked away. Under the fading autumn sky, they embraced, realizing that love wasn't about distance or time. It was about the choice they made, again and again, to hold on to each other. And so, the whispers of the autumn wind carried their story forward, a tale of two hearts that learned to stay together, no matter where life tried to pull them apart. Whispers of the Sea. The small coastal town of Windmere was the kind of place where time seemed to move slower. Waves curled against the shore, fishermen rose with the sun, and lanterns flickered softly on the wooden piers at night. It was here that Evelyn returned after 10 years away, carrying a suitcase, a notebook, and a heart full of unspoken words. She had left Windmere at 18, chasing dreams of becoming a writer in the city. But those dreams had come with sacrifices. Chief among them was leaving behind Daniel, her childhood friend and the boy who had always been more than a friend. They had promised to write letters, to wait, but life had a way of pulling people apart. Now, standing on the familiar boardwalk, Evelyn wondered if the man she once loved would even recognize her. Daniel hadn't left Windmere. He had taken over his father's boat repair shop, his hands growing calloused from years of work. Yet, despite the salt and sun in his life, there was always one memory that felt fresh: Evelyn's laughter carried on the wind. Every evening, as he locked the shop, he would glance at the horizon and wonder if she still remembered him. The night Evelyn arrived, Daniel was at the pier, mending a net. He looked up, and for a moment, thought he was dreaming. The lantern light caught her hair, and she looked both exactly the same and impossibly different. "Daniel?" Her voice was soft, uncertain. He froze, the net slipping from his hands. "Evelyn." There was silence between them, not empty, but heavy, filled with everything they hadn't said for 10 years. Over the next weeks, their paths crossed again and again. At the market, at the pier, at the old lighthouse where they used to sit as teenagers. Conversation was awkward at first, filled with polite questions. But slowly, the years fell away. They laughed about the seagull that once stole Daniel's sandwich, and argued about who was the better storyteller. Evelyn found herself writing again, inspired not by the city's noise, but by the quiet steadiness of Daniel's presence. One evening, he invited her onto his boat. The sea was calm, the sky painted in streaks of orange and gold. "You've changed," he said as they drifted. "So have you," she replied. "But somehow, you're still the same Daniel I remember." He looked at her, eyes steady. "And you're still the Evelyn I never stopped waiting for." Her breath caught. For years she had carried guilt, afraid that leaving had broken what they had. But in his gaze, she saw no anger, only love that had endured the distance of oceans and time. The night ended with a kiss, tentative at first, then certain, a promise rewritten under the stars. Evelyn decided not to leave again. Her stories could be written anywhere, but love, she realized, had roots. And hers had always been here, in Windmere, in the boy who had become a man and still waited at the edge of the sea. Together, they walked back along the pier, lanterns glowing around them, the sound of the waves carrying their laughter into the night. For the first time in 10 years, Evelyn felt at home. The Bridge of Whispers. On the edge of a quiet town stood an old wooden bridge, draped in ivy and weathered by time. It wasn't grand or impressive, but it carried with it countless secrets, letters tucked beneath its beams, promises whispered in the dusk, and farewells spoken under the veil of rain. Clara had always loved that bridge. As a child, she would sit on its railings and watch the water ripple below, imagining that every reflection carried the dreams of people who had once stood there. Now, at 24, she found herself returning to it almost every evening after work, drawn by a pull she couldn't explain. One autumn afternoon, as golden leaves drifted onto the river, she met Daniel. He was leaning against the railing, sketchbook in hand, his eyes fixed on the water. His dark hair caught the sunlight, and his quiet concentration intrigued her. She hesitated, but curiosity made her step closer. "Are you drawing the bridge or the river?" Clara asked, her voice tentative. He looked up, startled but not unkind. "Both," he replied with a soft smile. "But mostly, I'm trying to capture the silence between them." It was such an odd answer that Clara laughed, though something about it stayed with her. That day, she learned he was an artist who had recently moved to the town, seeking peace after years of restless wandering. Their conversation flowed easily, as if the bridge itself had conspired to bring them together. From then on, Clara and Daniel met often. Sometimes by chance, sometimes by unspoken agreement. They would sit on the bridge, talking until the stars appeared. He showed her his sketches, of the river at dawn, of the bridge in rain, of her silhouette without her knowing he had drawn it. She, in turn, told him of her dreams of traveling, of seeing cities she had only read about in books. One evening, as the wind grew colder, Daniel handed her a folded piece of paper. Inside was a drawing of the bridge. But across it, he had drawn two figures walking hand in hand. Her breath caught. "Is this us?" she whispered. His gaze held hers. "It could be. If you wanted it to be." Her heart raced. She realized then that the quiet companionship she had come to cherish had bloomed into something deeper, something fragile, yet powerful. But life has its own currents. Weeks later, Daniel received news. A gallery in Paris wanted to showcase his work. It was the opportunity he had been waiting for, yet it meant leaving. The night before his departure, they stood together on the bridge, the air heavy with unspoken words. "I don't want to lose this," Clara admitted, tears glimmering in her eyes. "You won't," Daniel promised, gently touching her hand. "This bridge brought us together. And no matter where I go, I'll carry you with me." He kissed her beneath the lantern's glow, a kiss both sweet and aching with the knowledge of distance. Then, with one last look, he walked away, his figure fading into the night. Months passed. Clara still visited the bridge, though it felt lonelier without him. She wrote him letters, and sometimes he wrote back, but the silence between their words grew heavier with time. Yet, she never stopped waiting. One spring evening, after nearly a year, she returned to the bridge and found a sketch pinned to the railing. It was of the river, the bridge, and her standing alone, but beside her was another figure, reaching for her hand. Clara turned, and there he was, Daniel, smiling through the weariness of travel, his eyes filled with the same unspoken longing as hers. "I told you," he said softly. "The bridge always brings us back." She ran into his arms, and this time, there were no promises of leaving, only the certainty of staying, of love strong enough to endure distance, silence, and time. And from that day on, the Bridge of Whispers became theirs forever, not just as a place of parting, but of returning, of love that had found its way home.